Great announcement for coastal Louisiana, the investment of $60 million into 6 different projects that will help us to restore our coast. When you hear some of these initiatives, the important thing is many of these projects have multiple benefits. For example, $20 million to increase the fresh water into Bayou Lafourche. That is very important for coastal restoration, also important for drinking water for us up to 400,000 people. We saw in 2008 with Hurricane Gustav the troubles that were caused because of the lack of fresh water in this area, drinkable fresh water in this area. We've already spent approximately $20 million to increase the flow of fresh water into Bayou Lafourche. Today we announced another $20 million. A second example, we put additional money into the Coastal Forest Initiative. That'll help to help preserve and to rebuild some of our native coastal forests. That helps with coastal erosion. That helps to protect us from future storm surge as well. You also heard from an environmental group, the Audubon Society. This is also an important habitat for various birds and important species and other wildlife. Bottom line, 6 important projects. We've made it very clear we're not waiting for the federal government. We're not waiting for red tape or studies. Time is not on our side. Since I've been governor, we've invested $1.7 billion in restoring our coast. We have made this a top priority. We've combined invested a combination of state surplus dollars, capital outlay dollars, CIAP dollars. We've used BP dollars, federal dollars. We'll continue to make coastal restoration a priority because we need to be ready before the next storm. We need to be reversing this damage. Time is not on our side. That is why these projects today are such an important step forward. We're truly here today to make a very important announcement about regional collaboration towards restoring our coast. And that's why it's so important we've got so many regional leaders up here with us today. Since we took office in 2008, we've invested in an unprecedented total of more than $1.7 billion in coastal projects across our state. That represents a record investment of state dollars in combination with federal and other dollars as well. Despite this great investment, we know that the devastation done to our coastal areas and our marshes just last year during the BP oil spill continues to this day. And before that, we had Hurricanes Gustav and Ike in 2008. Before that, obviously Hurricanes Katrina and Rita back in 2005. The bottom line is, despite the great progress we've made in the last few years, we must do even more to protect our people and our businesses from the threat of coastal erosion as well as hurricanes and floods, which is why we're here today. Today we're here to announce 6 coastal protection and restoration projects aimed at rehabilitating our damaged coast and turning back the clock on land erosion. The funding for the projects we're announcing today is from the Coastal Impact Assistance Program. It provides funding to oil-producing states like Louisiana, whose coastal areas support oil and gas production on the Outer Continental Shelf. Louisiana is set to receive a total of $496 million from CIAP, from this program for coastal restoration work. 35% of those dollars go directly to the 19 coastal parishes. Another 65% goes to the states. In our state, we already have many CIAP projects underway, yet we know some of these projects have run into substantial delays with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We know we don't have the time to wait for years and years of paperwork, red tape, and studies. And that is why we're here today to announce 6 projects totaling $60 million to help restore our coast in Southeast Louisiana. And let me share with you. Let me share with you these 6 projects and why they are so important for our entire region. First, we're going to commit $26.5 million to the Living Shorelines and Shoreline Stabilization Demonstration Project. With this project, up to 21 miles of bioengineered oyster reef will be installed in the coastal fringe marsh of St. Bernard Parish from Eli Point to the mouth of Bayou La Lucha, extending around the southern shore of Treasure Bay. $2.5 million of the total funding will be used for shoreline protection in Jefferson and Plaquemines parishes. This project will help to mitigate wind-wave-induced shoreline erosion while providing additional fishery habitat as well. The second project we're announcing today is another $20 million for the Mississippi River water reintroduction into Bayou Lafourche. Bayou Lafourche was cut off from the flow of the river in 1903. It was only partially reconnected back in the 1950s with the installation of a siphon station. We have previously committed $24 million to this project, along with another $3 million in CDBG funds to refurbish the water pump in the bayou after tens of thousands of homes and businesses were subject to a boil advisory back in 2008 because of Hurricane Gustav. This project will help to restore this outlet of the Mississippi River by dredging the bayou and increasing the flow of water down Bayou Lafourche to prevent the stagnant conditions we saw as recently as 2008. This project will help direct additional fresh water to marshes located further south in Lafourche and Terrebonne parishes. The third project, $5 million for the Mississippi River Delta Management Strategic Planning. This funding will support the evaluation of best practices for freshwater and sediment resources in the lower Mississippi River, from the old river control structure to the head of passes. The river must be managed for navigation, flood control, and restoration. You may recall, if you look at the NASA satellite photos from the 2011 water flooding challenges, they showed an extraordinary amount of sediment that was being wasted in the Gulf instead of building land and restoring our coast. Fundamental changes are needed in the management of the river to ensure that we maintain our status as the top maritime state, to ensure that our citizens are protected, to ensure that our coast is restored. Through this evaluation, we want to increase the land building capability of the river sediments while maintaining deep draft navigation of the river. But I want to be clear. This tool will be used to guide future decisions rather than serving as an impediment to projects that Congress has already authorized for construction and are already set to go. The fourth project, $4 million for the Coastal Forest Conservation Initiative. We previously committed another $16.2 million towards this initiative. The Coastal Forest Conservation Initiative includes acquiring land rights on coastal forest tracts from willing landowners to facilitate forest sustainability. It will also support wetland assimilation projects that help to sustain coastal forests, which act as an important natural barrier against hurricanes. The fifth project, $3.3 million for the Falgoux Canal freshwater enhancement. This project is part of the Merganza system. It will help to ensure that the Merganza to the Gulf project protects the citizens of Terrebonne and Lafourche parishes while allowing for fresh water to continue to nourish the wetlands. Specifically, the project will include the addition of water control structures to prevent storm surge backflow. These structures will be constructed through the proposed levee on the south side of Falgoux Canal Road in order to allow fresh water to flow unimpeded by the levee. The sixth and final project, $750,000 for the Atchafalaya long-distance sediment pipeline. As you know, the Barataria-Terrebonne Basin is sediment-starved. This project, along with the Bayou Lafourche project, will help to get sediment and fresh water back into these areas. Specifically, the project will support the design of a long-distance sediment pipeline for moving sediment dredged from the Port of Morgan City's channel maintenance program into the sediment-deficient marshes of central and eastern Terrebonne. This project will also prioritize sites for creating and restoring marshland. You know, in addition to the Mississippi River Delta Management Strategic Planning, along with this study, this shows for years we've been pushing the federal government to make beneficial use of the sediments that they dredge for navigational purposes. We're no longer just waiting for the federal government, we're moving ahead on our own. This builds on some previous work we've done to benefit Plaquemines Parish. When you look at some of the other projects we're announcing today, for example, the reintroduction of more fresh water into Bayou Lafourche, these are projects that, again, will benefit not only coastal restoration efforts, but will help to improve the quality of life for our people, in this case by helping with drinking water. The bottom line is these six projects, these $60 million, the $26.5 million for our living shoreline stabilization effort, $20 million for the Mississippi River water reintroduction of the Bayou Lafourche, $5 million for the Mississippi River Delta Management, $4 million for the Coastal Forest Conservation Initiative, $3.3 million for the freshwater enhancement, and finally $750,000 to help bring sediment from the Atchafalaya to the Barataria-Terrebonne Basin. All of these projects together represent another significant step forward for Louisiana to help restore our coast, protect our people, protect our property. And again, we're not willing to wait for the federal government. We're not willing to wait for the red tape or the studies. We know time is not on our side. We've got to act today. After 4 hurricanes and the BP oil spill in the last few years, it is imperative we do everything we can to restore our coast and get to work on hurricane protection projects that will lessen the impact of future storms. Now, the next steps, the U.S. Department of Interior requires a 30-day comment period. We will go through that 30-day comment period, but the bottom line is these 6 projects represent more critical progress for restoring our coast. But we know, especially during hurricane season, right now we've got even more work to do. This builds on the $1.7 billion we've already invested, another significant step forward. But we've got a lot more work to do to protect our people, protect our coast, What today's announcement shows, we're not going to let red tape or studies stand in our way. We're going to continue to do everything we can to protect Louisiana's coast. Now, I introduced a bunch of people at the beginning. I'm not going to come back and reintroduce each of them as they come back up here and speak. But we've asked, are you going to hear from our parish presidents, from Charlotte, from Craig, from Michelle, from John? You're also going to hear from representatives from the National Audubon Society as well as the Nature Conservancy. So please give a great Nichols welcome to Charlotte Randolph, Lafourche Parish President.
Thank you, Governor. Welcome to Lafourche Parish, and thank you so much for being a champion for coastal restoration here in Lafourche and all along the coast of Louisiana. This is a very significant step. It's been part of our long-term plan to introduce additional water into Bayou Lafourche for all the benefits it provides to us. So at this point in time, we are looking at almost $45 million being spent on a vital artery here in Lafourche Parish that will provide a secure means of drinking water for the 300,000 residents who rely on it, as well as an opportunity to bring fresh water into our marshes and to bring nutrients into those marshes as well, in order that they may build and protect us in the future. Thank you again, Governor, and the coastal staff for making these funds available to Lafourche Parish and to Bayou Lafourche. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Craig Tafaro from St. Bernard Parish. Charlotte, thank you for welcoming us and hosting us. And Governor, as always, we applaud you and your Coastal Restoration Department for the many projects and the leadership of moving our coastal protection forward as a priority. You know, in St. Bernard Parish, we have experienced quite a bit of challenge, obviously, over the last 40 some odd years. The MRGO has been a painstakingly obvious mirror of what our coastal erosion challenges in the state, as well as within the parish of St. Bernard. What I think today represents is a forward-thinking, visionary approach to attacking a problem that continues to plague the entire coast of Louisiana. Specifically, what BP and the BP oil spill showed and revealed was what vulnerabilities we experience and live with on a day-to-day basis in coastal Louisiana. By putting forward and reprogramming funding instead of waiting for the federal government, this states that coastal protection in Louisiana is a priority, not only of the governor's office, but in the entire Coastal Parish Coalition. Additionally, what we have learned is just recently that the MRGO ecosystem restoration study is likely to get about a $1 million allocation at the federal level. Painfully, that's about $1 billion short. Okay, so while we don't have $1 billion at the state level to put into projects such as shoreline protection and bio remediation projects and oyster reef blocks and the establishment of shoreline protection, what we do have is the ability to think and use money smartly. That's a great statement for local government and state government to partner in doing. So, Governor, we applaud your vision, Garrett Graves and certainly Kyle Graham for their participation and leadership in helping this to become a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Garrett, for their leadership in this area. Today's announcement sends a strong statement to the residents and the businesses of Terrebonne Parish that this administration and our state and our local leaders all understand the coastal challenges that we face and are willing to propose solutions. We all know in Terrebonne the absolute necessity of our Merganza to the Gulf project, and we appreciate the work that Reggie Dupre and the entire Levee District has done in moving that project forward. But we also know that if we're ever going to do anything to stop coastal deterioration and potentially get where we are building coast has got to be coming from sediment from the Atchafalaya, and today is a very necessary first step. I want to thank the governor and Garrett again for their leadership in this area, all of our state legislators, and particularly Chairman Gordon Dove of the Natural Resources Committee for assistance in moving our projects in Terrebonne forward. Truly, any coastal parish understands the necessity of these projects. Thank you again, Governor. We thank you for coming. Thanks.
John Young, President of Jefferson Parish. I want to thank the President, faculty, and staff of Nichols for hosting us here today. A lot of Jefferson Parish residents are graduates of Nichols, and the campus looks beautiful. You've done a great job. I want to thank my colleague and host, Parish President Charlotte Randolph, for being the host here today. And I want to thank the Governor and Garrett Graves and the rest of his staff for taking these bold, innovative steps. We don't have the luxury of time. And during the BP oil disaster, I used to say that when BP said tomorrow, they didn't necessarily mean tomorrow. They just meant not today. Well, with the governor, he leads today, and they don't wait for tomorrow. They don't wait for the federal government. We do not have the luxury of time, and I want to commend the governor and his staff for doing this, not only for the projects that are going to be done in Jefferson Parish, but indeed in Terrebonne, Lafourche, St. Bernard, and the entire coast, because one thing the BP oil disaster did is brought us all together and realized we're all united in defending the Louisiana coast. And again, this is not just a Louisiana issue. This is a national issue. And we need to continue to drive that point home because we do need the assistance of the federal government, but the governor's not waiting. He's leading us as the quarterback in putting money, Louisiana money, into these vital projects. But at the end of the day, to really make an impact, we're going to need BP to do what they said they're going to do, make it right. And we need the federal government to step up to the plate. Because again, we produce 60% of the natural oil and gas consumed in the United States, and we produce 60% of the fisheries that are consumed in the United States. So it's not only protecting our way of life and quality of life here in Louisiana, but protecting the quality of life for the rest of the United States citizens in the United States of America. So, Governor, thank you again for your leadership. We will stand with you and behind you, and we'll move forward to protect the coast of Louisiana for future generations to come. Thank you all for being here today.
Good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Dewey with the National Audubon Society. And again, Governor Garrett Graves, thank you so much for your work on this important program. What we have noticed from a national perspective, frankly, is that in the CIAP program arena, Louisiana has stood out among states for its forward thinking and really aggressive action in moving these monies properly. The allocation of the 6 projects today that have been identified represents a fantastic list. They need to move forward, and the state is doing that. They're following this program closely, and not $1 is going to be wasted. We firmly believe that. Also, at National Audubon Society, we have the privilege of working in and around Louisiana's coastal area in many identified important bird areas. One of the programs today that is going to receive some funding is the Coastal Forest Conservation Initiative. And of all the areas identified through this particular program, many of those overlap directly with our nationally important bird areas, and we're thrilled to have more funding go into a really cost-benefit ratio program that really brings bang for the buck with those dollars. Also, one more noteworthy item is the hydro study that the governor mentioned in the hydro plan. It's a testament to Louisiana's commitment to science. And I believe that what you'll find during the completion of this study is all of the projects that we need to move forward in a larger arena will be able to tap into the work completed through this study, and it will be really something to see in the future. It's going to go through the next 10 years of our work. So thank you so much again for all your work. Very good projects, and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Gautreaux, and I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Nature Conservancy's Louisiana office. I also thank the Governor, Garrett, and staff, and our host today for bringing us together to celebrate this important announcement. I just like to make note of 3 things. Number one, this funding could have been lost if it had not been reprogrammed into these projects, and we know that our coastal needs are great and our funding is relatively small compared, so I'm very happy to see this funding utilized on these important projects. The second thing is Nature Conservancy has long been involved in the Coastal Forestry Conservation Initiative. As the governor mentioned, there were originally $16.2 million put into that program in CIAP, and the state accepted more applications than could be funded. So this additional $4 million will be an important investment in coastal forests that, of course, provide the habitat we understand but are important storm protections for coastal communities. So we're very pleased to see an additional investment in that. And third, like Cynthia, I'm very pleased to see an additional investment in the Delta Management Study. I think many of us had the opportunity to comment that those were some pretty sad pictures looking during the high water stages at all the sediment washing off the continental shelf. So this study will give us a lot of the important information we need to plan in the future for the projects, the information that we'll need to design and implement them. So again, kudos on announcing these projects. We're very supportive and grateful. Thank you.
Let's make one final point and then we'll be done. I just want to thank again. Now, you've heard from two of the most prominent environmental and conservation groups. We've had a number of other groups represented here. I also want to again commend our regional leadership. The reality is you've seen unprecedented cooperation across political boundaries, across geographical lines. The reality is coastal restoration works across parish lines. We saw the oil spill cause damage across parish lines. You've seen these group of parish presidents come together to use CDBG dollars, to use state surplus dollars, to use capital outlay dollars, to use CIAP dollars, to use other dollars to build projects with regional impact. And so they don't come to the table saying it only has to benefit one parish or one community. They understand that they by working together, we can get an even greater impact for the dollars we invest. So I really want to thank them for their leadership and working together as one group, speaking with one voice to help protect the coast of Louisiana. Thank you all very much.